Hey YouTube, so we're back on part C of part 2 of grade 5 of the Show You Work Hardest Math Problems. So I'm just going to jump into it after I check that I'm set up and this is working. Yep, it seems to be all right. All right, so we're going to do problem number 51. This is not necessarily an illustration, but it's kind of sort of in the form of being one right here, right? So what I'm going to notice is that there's two expressions, A and B, and this part, whoops, let me do that a little better. This part here that I'm underlining, yeah, wait 1 second, the tablet's falling off on me, that's what my problem is. This part here and this part here, I guess I can't draw lines well. I told you guys a number of times I have dysgraphia, but I also have this. I also have writing problems and stuff as well. All right, so that part's the same. That's my observation. And some of you don't realize that the bracket, the square bracket, right? Enough of you know about PEMDAS involving parentheses, right? But the shift key on your keyboard gives you the parens, right? Or no. There's curly braces as well. If you have a QWERTY keyboard, if you go across, you have UIOP, and the next two things is the left square bracket, the first thing I did here, and the next thing is the right one. They also can be used for parenthetical situations. Okay, so basically the left and right normal parenthesis is this part right here. And then the square bracket is containing this whole thing. So that's dictating the order of precedence. We're going to add 1.5 and 100.25. Once we do that, then we're going to multiply by 3.65. And once we do that, we're going to multiply by 4. So that's what's going on there. All right, so let me get rid of these extra lines, because what we really want to show, in fact, let me get rid of them all because I wrote so sloppy. All right, let's just leave it like that. So Antoine wrote the expression shown below. The value of expression B, the second one here, is 8 times the value of expression A. So to me, that says that B is 8 times A. And that's it. Okay? That's the mapping the English into the algebra. Okay? Without evaluating A. In other words, they're telling us, do not add this, do not multiply this, do not do those. Determine what number belongs in the box in expression B. Okay? Well, if we consider this whole blob here and this whole blob here to be the same, if they're telling us that B is 8 times it and A is 4, then we have 8 times 4 equals 32. Okay, and that's our answer. That's all they're looking for here. A lot of kids are just destroyed. They don't know where to go for this. Just map it out. The red thing here, we may want to even call it that. Let me erase this for 1 second. Right, math is conceptual, and sometimes those concepts can get too deep too fast. And sometimes they're just subtle. So if we, whoa, wait a second, my computer just freaked out. If we call this whole thing here R, that means A is 4 R's. And if this whole thing, which is the exact same thing, is also an R, then if B is 8 times more, then it's got to be 4 times 8 or 32 R's. Right? Doesn't that logically make sense? So another thing that happens in this question is normally it's show your work or explain. They're giving you either choice here. So you can show what I just did here, That's showing it. Okay? You could also write it out in some other ways, or you could explain it in words. And I just did the explanation, so you can replay that and catch that back. That the part they don't want you to evaluate is exactly the same in both expressions. So if that's the same, and one is 4 times that thing, and the other is 8 times more, it must be 32 times more, or 4 times 8 more, right? So there's not much really else going on in this problem. I can get why it's confusing, though. So this is about expressions. It's definitely about algebra and equations, all right? And just about mapping English to math, right? And it's about magnitude as well, multiples. Eight times the thing, eight times it. That was 51. Let's see what the next question was. There was 3 of them, I think, that was still kind of out there. So this is a problem. Just looking at it from here, I see 4 numbers leaping out at me. I don't see a lot of words. So sometimes a lot of kids get bogged down with that the word problem is too long. But sometimes the shorter ones are even harder. So Molly bought 12.5 yards of fabric for $4.50 a yard to make dog beds. Okay? We don't know what they want us to do with these numbers yet. She uses 2.5 yards of fabric for each dog bed. She sells each dog bed for that. After subtracting the cost, how much money does she earn? So it seems to me we need to do a bunch of computations here to be able to get to there. And that's what we have. So first of all, we have she has 12.5 yards of fabric that costs $4.50 each. So we don't really care about that last zero. It's just 4.5, right? 4.5 is the same as 4.50, right? 5/10 is the same as 50 hundredths, right? If I do 5/10, that is equal to 50 100ths. And the 4 is the same on both. Okay, so there's some cases where we can throw this extra 0 up. So that's all I did here. Okay, so we're going to have to multiply this out. 5 times 5 is 25. 5, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10. I got 12. Carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1 is 6. Okay, now I'm going to do the 4. 4 times 5, and I skip the space all the time. I'm not pointing this out. I pointed it out for grade 3 and grade 4. In grade 5, you guys should know that nothing goes here, or you can put a 0. Okay. 5 times 4 is 20. 0. Carry my 2. I'm overwriting or scratching out the previous one. 4 times 2 is 8, plus that is 2 is 10. 0. And I carry 1 again. 4 times that is, I get 5. Okay. So I end up with 5, 2, 6, 5. Okay. And this, let me change the color of this for 1 second. There's 1 decimal point that moved over here and 1 decimal point for here. So that means my answer, I have to move it over twice. So I get $56.25. I am not finished. All I figured out, for now, I'm up to right here. All I figured out is how much she paid for the fabric. So there's going to be a bunch of numbers flying around here. Let me write that better. Fabric cost. Okay. She used 2.5 yards of the fabric for each dog bed. Okay. She uses 2.5 yards of fabric for each dog bed. That means we need to find out. We need to do 12.5 because she has 12.5 yards altogether, divided by 2.5. Okay, to figure out how many dog beds that she made. So we can figure out what the eventual profit is. Okay? So there's a couple of ways we can do this, right? We can convert it to fractions, or basically what we're doing is 2.5 into 12.5. Okay? We rewrite this to move the decimal point on the outside. If we do that once, we have to move this once. So we get 25 divided into 125. Okay? 25 into 1 can't do. 25 into 12 can't do. 25 into 125, well, let's see. I know 4 25s is 100, so it's 5. All right? So she has 5 dog beds. And the next sentence says she sells each dog bed for $17.50. So now we have to get $17.50 times the 5 dog beds that she sold. Okay, 5 times 5 is 25, carry my 2. 7 times 5 is 35, 37, carry my 3, and eat. And I was over 1 decimal point here. So I have to move over 1 decimal point here as well. All right. So what I'm getting is that she made, her profit, this is the cost sold, dog beds, sales. Okay. So it wants us, so we're up to here now finally. After subtracting the cost of the fabric, which is this, how much money does she earn? So they're actually telling us what to do there. So we have 80, right? We have 87.50. Okay, and we're going to add that 0 back because we're going to subtract from it 56.25. Okay? And that's all we have to do is subtract that now. So we need to borrow, so that's a 4, that's a 1, that's 5, that's 2, that's 1, and that's 3. So we get 31.25. And that is how much she earned. So basically you have the profits minus the costs. That's her earnings. Okay? So how much money does she earn? Right, that's the keyword. So that we're trying to figure out there. Let's see, the answer should be in dollars. Yep, the units is in dollars. So we're cool. So there's a lot of steps to this. Not super ugly hard math, but lots of steps where you can make a lot of errors. So let's see, this was step number 1. This was step number 2. This was step number 3. And this was step number 4. So there was a word problem that was short, but a lot of things that we needed to figure out doing inside of it. All right, so there's a lot of multiplication happening. So there's multiplication checking. Multi-part word problem, multiple digits. It deals with equal parts and multiples and things like that as well. And remember, in all these cases, we can reverse things back out. Like I said this was 5. Well, if I do 2.5 times 5, the opposite operation, 5 times 5 is 25, 2, 10, 12. There's 1 decimal place, there's 1 decimal place. I got 12.5 there. Okay? I can take the 87.50 for the other one and divide it by 5. I get 1 with 3 left over, right? 7 times 5 is 35 with 2 left over. Bring up the decimal point. 5 times 5 is 25. So we have ways to do that. I can also take the 56.25 and add to that the 31.25, right? 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry my 1. 2 to 1 is 5. 6 plus 1 is 7. 5 plus 3 is 8. I get the original 87.50 back. So remember to do your checks and your reverse operations to be able to kind of figure out, check some of these things. And a lot of kids got this wrong. By the way, this was a 3-point question because of that. Many of the other ones were 2-point questions. Okay, and I think there's either 1 or 2 more questions here. So a lot of kids kind of messed this up as well. It's already, we can see it starts out with fractions, mixed fractions as well. It's a word question on top of that, so it can maybe start getting ugly real fast. We also have the thing where we have this here. Do we make this 12.5? Do we make this 25 halves? Right? We don't know yet. We have to kind of look at the problem and assess that to see what makes sense to do there or not. Let me just make that cleaner so you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's try to give it a shot. So in a race, there consisted of 3 parts. The first part was the cycling. The cycling was 12.5 miles. Okay, so there's a unit there again. The running part was 1/4 the distance of the cycling. So we can just write it out. The running was 1/4 of the cycling. Okay, the kayaking was 1/2 of the running. So if you notice this, I want to write this nice because it's an involved question. 1/2 of the running. Okay, so if you notice, there's kind of a cascade happening through each thing. All right, and there's lots of messy ways to kind of approach this and so on or whatever. One way is to map this into a fraction. So we get to 25 halves. Okay, so C is equal to 25 halves of a mile. Okay, and by the way, it just said 1/4 there. So all the units are in miles. We can keep them in miles with no problem. In fact, if we look at the end, it's in miles. So we don't need to do anything. We need to convert it to feet or any other nonsense like that. So we're just going to stay stuck with that. Right? We always go for that kind of little double check with the answer to kind of guide us into where we should be going. So if the running part was 1/4 of C, and a C is 25 halves, then this must be 25/8. And if we want, we can map that into eighths. 8 times 3 is 24. So we get 3 1/8. Okay? Right? And the kayaking is 1/2 R, or 1/2 of 25/8. Okay? And that's equal to 25/16. And we don't know yet, but that's equal to what? 1 and 4 and 9/16. If I did all those right. Let me just double check all this. Again, I want to make sure I copied the numbers from the start. So I'm going to reread the question. In a race that consisted of 3 parts, the cycling part was 12.5 miles long. Okay, cool. So I have that here. So I'm here. The running part of the race is 1/4 distance of the cycling part. 1/4 I got right. 12.5 I got right. The kayaking part was 1/2 of the running part. Cool, I got that. What is the entire distance? So I have the cycling is 12.5, which I converted to 25 halves, 24, 25 halves, right? 1/4 of that, 25/8. I kept that 25/8, and then half of that is 25/16. And let me just make sure, 24, 25, 3 1/8. And 16 plus 9 is 25. Yep, okay, so that's what we got. So it says, what was the entire distance? Well, the entire distance is equal to the the cycling plus the running plus the kayaking. So we either going to add 12.5 plus 3 1/8. Actually, let me write that as a half. Plus 3 1/8 plus 1 9/16. Okay, or it could have been 25 halves plus 25 eighths plus 25 16ths. Okay, this is not 75 over 26. Okay, that's not. You don't add those up. So in either of these scenarios, the one with the mixed fractions or the one with the top-heavy fractions, in both of those scenarios, we need to get a common denominator. So I think it should be obvious to all that the common denominator is 16. Again, if you have a problem with that, contact me. I'd be glad to tutor you on how to get the common denominator. So the first one is times 8, right? So we're going to get a large number there, right? The second one is just times 2. So we can get 50. Okay, and this one's times 8. So we're going to get what? 200 there? Because times 4 is 100. So let me just make sure. Times 2 times 8, 200. So here we get 275 over 16. Okay? So theoretically, we can leave it that way if we want. Okay? The other way was to work with the original thing here. I'll scroll this up slightly, and I will change the color of the ink just so it's clear what we're converting. So just make it red. Red's always a good color. So we have 12, and we also still have the 2, 8, and 16. So we're still going to get 16ths plus 3 and something 16ths plus, and then 1 9/16 we're just going to leave alone. Okay, so 1/8, right? 3 1/8 becomes how many? 2/16, right? And then 12 1/2, the half becomes 8/16. So now what we have to do is add up the whole numbers. So we get 15 16, okay? And we're going to add this up, so we get 8 plus 2 is 10, plus that is 19/16. And that's equal to 17 and 3/16. Okay? And that should be our answer. Okay? And I stopped right here, so what we're going to do is 16 divided into 275 to see if we get the same answer. So 16 goes into 2, it doesn't. 16 goes into 27 one time, right? And it's left with 11 left over. Okay, 16 goes into 115. We hope the answer is 7. So let's try 7 there. 6 times 7 is 42, 4, right? And 7 plus 4 is 1, 1. So we get 17. We get 1, 1, 2, and we get 3 left over. Remainder 3. So we get the same answer no matter which way we did it. Okay. This red way seems to be the more efficient way to do it, but you know, that's okay too. So that's pretty much the algebra there. We could have also converted everything into a decimal if we wanted to. I was going to explore that, but I'm not exactly sure. That's kind of the way that we should be doing it. There's also a more wicked algebra way too. I'm not sure if I should explore that as well. let me see here. Because if C is equal to 12.5, okay, and R is 1/4 of that, so it's going to be 12.5 divided by 4, right? We're going to get what? We're going to get 3 point, and 4 goes into the 1. We're going to have to add a 0. We get 1 left over, right? 4 goes into that twice. That's 8. We get that left over, we get 2. So we get 3.125 is R, right? So let's just keep a track. We have 12.5 here, okay? 3.125 here is that. And then K is equal to 1/2 R. Okay, and just let me, wait, I think I wrote that wrong. Let me erase that so we're clean. I'm going to write it slightly bigger too. 3.125. Let me just go through that math one more time because I don't want to continue this if the numbers are wrong. 12.5, it was 12.5, right? 4 goes into that 3 times, bring up the decimal point. 4 goes into there once with 1 left over. 4 goes into there twice, 8 with 2 left over. 4, right, 3.125. And the kayaking was half of that. So we're going to get 3.125 divided by 2. So 2 goes into 3 1 time. We get 1 left over. 2 goes into 11 5 times with 1 left over. 2 goes into 12 6 times, right? And then 2 goes into the 5 twice. There's a leftover. So 2 goes into there 5 times. So we get a kind of a wicked ugly number. So that's K. And then what we have to do is add those up. So let's do that here. 1.5625 plus 3.125. So we're lining up the decimal points. So we're going to add a 0 here just to make it cleaner. And then the other number was 12.5. And I'm going to pad that with zeros at the end as well. Okay, so if we add this up, we get 5, 7, 8, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we end up getting 17.1875. Okay, so we have the 17. So let's double check that 3/16 to see if it's actually the 1875, to see if we actually computed this correctly. In other words, what I'm trying to show you is this is another way to do it by having done it with decimals. So I want to make sure that I have the same number. So I have 16 goes into 3. And if it's right, there's going to be a bunch of decimals here too. So, okay. 16 goes into 3, it doesn't. So I have 0 point. 16 goes into 30 once with what? 14 left over? Is that right? 23? Yep, 14 left over. We know the answer should be 8, so 16 times 8 is 6 times 8 is 48 plus 4. 8, we get 128. So that makes sense. We have 128 from 140. So what is that, 12? So now we have 16 into 120. Well, if 16 times 8 was 128, that's 7's right. Okay, so 16 times 7, that's a 2. We carried the 4, we get 112, so we get 8 left over. Okay, and is 16 times 5, is that 80? Yes. So it turns out that we have 17 and 3/16 is the same as 17.1875. Booyah. Wow, I didn't make a mistake. I did not make a mistake. Yeah, baby. There is another way to do this still. I'm going to scroll this slightly. If C was equal to 12.5, okay, and R is equal to C over 4, and the running sum of everything, and the kayaking was R over 2, okay, we could solve this algebraically as well. So if everything is C plus R plus K, that means it's equal to C plus, right, C over 4, right, plus K. But if K is C over 4 half, right? So what we're going to get is basically C over 4 divided by 2 for the K. All right, so that starts getting super ugly super fast. Right, so basically what we have is C plus C over 4 plus, what does that come down to? C over 2? C over 4 divided by 2 is equal to, it's C over 8. Okay. And what we could do is spin that off then. So we have a C, if we use the distributive property, times 1 plus 1/4 plus 1/8. All right. And if we add those up, we know C is to 12.5. And whatever the sum of that is, should end up giving us the same number. All right, I'm not going to do that because I'm probably going to make a mistake. I've probably even made a mistake already, but that's kind of the other way to do it, is to do it through that as well. So I'm really just beating the daylights out of this question and going all over the place. The main thing of the main concepts, though, was that it involved decimals, it involved fractions, it involved mixed numbers, it involved multiplication, it involved addition. It was just all over the place. It involved converting fractions back to decimals and decimals to fractions, depending on which way we did this. Just remember the interim steps. Some students think 1 9/16 is the answer because that's figuring out the kayaking and stuff like that. No, that's not the way it's going. Yeah, some also think it's 12.5 plus 1/4 plus 1/2. Okay, but that's not the way the algebra works either. So that's a no-go. Yeah, this is kind of a deep problem at certain levels. But there you go. And a lot of students got this wrong. So anyway, I would stick with some of the original ways. Okay, so I said I was not going to fully solve this last problem, but I might as well. So we ended up with that last line, which was the C times 1 plus 1/4 plus 1/8, which is over here, right? So what we really need to do is get this to be an eighth. So 1/4 is 2/8, right? So then we have C times 1 plus 2/8 plus 1/8. So we get C times, that's equal to C times 1 3/8. Okay? Or if we want, it's C times 8 11/8. Or if we want, it's 11/8 times C. And we know from earlier that C was the 12.5, right? That's what they originally gave us, that the cycling was 12.5. Okay? So what we have is that times 12.5. Okay, we already mapped this into 12.5 and gotten 25 halves. So let's just use that. So we have 25 halves times 11/8 is going to give us 16 at the bottom. And we're going to do 25 times 11. So we get 25. Shift it over again, 25. So we get 275. We get 275 over 16. And I think we did that earlier, but we can certainly do it again. 16 goes into 275. Okay, that's a 7. So that's once, right? You do twice, you get 32. So we have 11. And then we did the 7. And then we ended up with the 3/16 again. All right, so we can get that again if we want to. All right, so that's just another way to bring it to fruition, about just another cutesy way to do that. I think I answered everything here. Now let me just scroll through everything just to be sure from the first question. Let's see, 46, we did. 47 we did. 48 we did. 49 we did. Let me just let that catch up and get focus. 50 we did. 51 we did. 52 we did. 53 we did. 54, yeah, whoops. Is that the last one? Where are we going here? 54. Wait, there's a blank page there. I thought there was a 55. There is 55. All right, y'all. Hopefully you're enjoying this series. We're finally getting into a lot of meat here, and you know, it's cool stuff. I love this, and hopefully you guys are getting something out of this. Please, any questions? Don't hesitate to email me. Need tutoring? Yo, don't look no further. And peace out. Oh, subscribe, like, send me lots of cash. Okay, bye.